$47 billion. That was the price tag. On a company that, when you scrape off all the glitter, rented out desks. That's it. That's the business. It signed leases on office buildings. It filled them with free beer and neon signs that said things like, "Do what you love." And then it rented those desks back to you by the month. A landlord. A landlord in a hoodie. And the world decided this landlord was worth $47 billion. More than Ford. More than most airlines. For renting out office space. So, how does that happen? The man behind it walked around the office barefoot. He did tequila shots in business meetings. He told people, out loud, that he planned to become the world's first trillionaire, then president of the world, and then, just for fun, live forever. His name is Adam Neumann, and this is the story of how he sold the smartest money on the planet a $47 billion feeling. And here's the twist that makes this one different. When it all came crashing down, nobody actually broke the law. Grab a snack. This one is a fever dream. So let's start with the boring truth, the one hiding under all the kombucha. WeWork's actual business was painfully simple. It would sign a really long lease on a building, 15 years, sometimes more. It would spend a fortune making that building look like a startup playground. Then it would chop it into little offices and rent them out on tiny short-term deals. Month to month. Cancel whenever you want. You see the problem? You don't need an MBA. Bernie Madoff hit his trap. This one is just sitting there in the open. WeWork owed its landlords for the next 15 years, but its customers could pack up and leave in 30 days. So the second anything went wrong in the economy, the customers vanish, and the gigantic rent bill stays. By 2019, WeWork had promised to pay about $47 billion in future rent, and the money it was actually owed by its customers? About $4 billion. That is not a rounding error, that is a canyon, and it was losing money like it was a competitive sport. In 2018, the company lost nearly $2 billion on under $2 billion in sales. Read that again. It lost almost $1 for every single dollar it brought in. So how do you sell a money bonfire for $47 billion? Easy. You put it in a costume. You see, a landlord is boring. Investors pay landlords a small, sensible price. But a tech company? A world-changing, app-powered, data-driven tech company? Oh, those are worth a fortune. So WeWork simply decided it was tech. It called itself a global platform. It called renting desks space as a service. It crammed the word technology into its paperwork over 100 times. There was an app you could book a meeting room with, and that apparently was enough. And the mission? Oh, it wasn't to rent desks. The official mission, and I want to be clear I am quoting this directly, was to elevate the world's consciousness by renting you a desk next to a beer tap. Neumann once explained that the company's sky-high value was based, and again, real quote, more on our energy and spirituality than it is on a multiple of revenue. Which is a beautiful, poetic way of saying, please don't look at the numbers. And when people did look at the numbers, WeWork had a trick for that too. It invented its own special kind of profit. It started with its catastrophic losses, and then it simply subtracted the inconvenient parts. The cost of rent, the cost of marketing, the cost of running the actual company. Strip away the things that lose you money, and ta-da, the loser becomes a winner. On paper, in a slideshow. Now a costume gets you attention, but to get to $47 billion, you need a true believer with a bottomless wallet. Enter Masayoshi Son. Masa-san runs SoftBank, a Japanese giant with a $100 billion investment fund and a taste for moonshots. In 2016, he toured the WeWork office. The tour lasted about 12 minutes. 12. Then he took Neumann into his car, pulled out his iPad, and sketched out a multi-billion-dollar investment right there on the screen. His big advice to Neumann? He told him the company wasn't crazy enough. To go bigger, be wilder. You told the barefoot man to be crazier. Bold strategy. And that is the engine that built the fantasy. Every time SoftBank poured in more cash, the official price went up. 20 billion, then 42 billion, then 47. And here's the thing nobody said out loud. That number wasn't real. It wasn't a price the market set. It was a price one investor in Tokyo was willing to write down, and everybody else just agreed to believe it. One company analyst later put it perfectly. He said the $47 billion valuation was always a fiction created by SoftBank. A fiction. Hold on to that word. Because while the money flowed, the profit CEO got to do whatever he wanted. And what he wanted was a lot. Remember the layoffs? At one point, WeWork cut a chunk of its staff. Brutal day. So Neumann gathered everyone together, and after the somber speech, out came the trays of tequila shots. And then, to lift the mood, a surprise musical guest. A member of Run DMC performing live while the survivors danced and the freshly fired employees watched. Nothing says sorry about your job like a free concert you're paying for. Then there's the private jet. WeWork bought one, a $60 million one. On one flight overseas, Neumann and his friends reportedly smoked so much marijuana that the crew had to put on oxygen masks. And when they landed, the crew found a cereal box stuffed full of weed left on board for the trip home. The owner of the jet freaked out, recalled the plane, and flew it back empty, stranding the WeWork crew in another country. Whoops. This was a man who told people he wanted to live forever, who said he should be president of the world, who wanted to expand a desk rental company to Mars. He had the company buy a big stake in a fake wave machine company because he liked surfing. His wife, a top executive, reportedly had employees fired after meeting them for a few minutes because she didn't like their energy. And every summer, the whole company went to a music festival in a field with free wine and meditation tents to celebrate themselves. One reporter who snuck in said it felt like a cult. For years, the money covered everything. The losses, the tequila, the energy-based firings. The machine just ran. And then, WeWork decided to go public. To sell shares to ordinary people, you have to open your books. All of them. For the first time, outsiders, real investors with calculators, got to read exactly how this thing worked. It did not go well. The document landed in August 2019, and it was a horror show. There were the bottomless losses. There was the $47 billion in rent owed against $4 billion coming in. And then there were the personal details, the ones that made everyone's jaw hit the floor. Adam Neumann, it turned out, had personally trademarked the word we, and then he sold that trademark to his own company for almost $6 million. He charged WeWork millions of dollars for the word we. He also owned pieces of buildings and then leased those very buildings to WeWork, so the company paid rent to its own CEO. He'd taken a loan from the company at an interest rate of basically nothing, less than 1%. He had stock with 20 votes per share, so the board literally could not fire him. He could fire them. And he mused about his family still controlling the company in 300 years. The public read all of this and gagged. What happened next was the fastest fall in modern business history. In about 6 weeks, the value of WeWork collapsed, from $47 billion to under 10. The public offering was canceled, and Adam Neumann was pushed out of the company he built. Now, here is where the story gets genuinely infuriating. When Neumann left, he didn't leave empty-handed. He walked away with a goodbye package once reported at almost $1.7 billion. Billion, with a B. A few weeks later, about 2,400 WeWork employees were laid off. Many of them held company stock they thought was worth a fortune. It was now worth nothing. So the founder leaves with a reported near billion. The workers leave with a cardboard box. SoftBank, the true believer, eventually lost around $14 billion on the whole adventure. Masa's son later called WeWork a stain on my life. And Adam Neumann? He was charged with nothing. Let me be crystal clear because this is the whole point. Unlike the other stories on this channel, this was not a crime. There was no Ponzi scheme. There was no stolen customer cash. Neumann never went to court, never faced a charge. He didn't break the law. He just believed loudly, expensively, and he was very, very persuasive. In fact, the system rewarded him. A few years later, one of the most famous investors in the world handed Neumann about $350 million for his brand new company before it had done anything, the biggest single check that firm had ever written. And in 2024, Neumann casually tried to buy WeWork back. He is, to this day, a billionaire. Oh, and WeWork? It went bankrupt in 2023, but it didn't die. It cleaned house, dropped the fantasy, and quietly came back. Today, it actually turns a small profit, renting desks, like it always was. So here's the cruel little lesson hiding inside the 47 billion. The number was never real. It wasn't money. It was a fiction, a feeling, a vibe that one excited investor agreed to put a price on, and everyone else nodded along because the founder was tall and charming and barefoot and absolutely sure of himself. Bernie Madoff faked his numbers. Sam Bankman-Fried hid his. Adam Neumann did something almost stranger. He didn't fake anything. He just told everyone a beautiful story about renting desks, and they handed him billions to keep telling it. You cannot tech bro your way out of paying rent on empty desks. But apparently, you can get fabulously rich trying. And that might be the most broke on purpose thing of all. This is Broke on Purpose, where I show you exactly how people lose money so that you don't. If you'd rather laugh at the next $47 billion fantasy than fall for it, hit subscribe. Trust me, there are so many more of these.